Today, the latest with Russia and Ukraine. And is there war brewing between China and Taiwan? We've got all that and more coming up, and it all starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sarah Gonzalez. Yes, I am back at home once again. I don't know what to tell you about that. Texas just completely freaks out anytime there is cold weather. But I am joined today by my good friends, Jason Buttrell, Chief Researcher of the Glenn Beck Program. And also, Jason, I'd like to just call you just foreign relations expert of the news and why it matters. Can I just do that?
Yeah. It's either an invasion just happened or there's a 3,000-page document that just released when you guys have me on. Love it.
Yes. Well, I mean, jack of all trades, so it's fine. Also joining us, we have Jaco Booyens, host of The Bottom Line and also BlazeTV contributor. Jaco, thank you for being here as well.
Thank you. Jason, you get called on more than that, brother. Come on.
It's true. You don't want to undersell yourself. No. So, guys, I know we have a lot to get into. I know a lot has transpired specifically in Ukraine since the last show, but I want to first thank our sponsor, Omega XL. So Omega XL is there for those of you who have reached the age that you don't want to discuss, like maybe I have, where you just have these random aches and pains, or you completely throw your back out from like lifting your toddler. And it really, it humbles you because you're like, wow, I didn't realize I was that age again. But it also really affects your day-to-day life. You can't run around with your kids. You can't do the things that you used to be able to do. Don't let your life be like that. You got to try Omega XL. It is an all natural, which men are going to be like, oh, all natural, it doesn't work. No, it does. It's drug-free. It is a natural way to combat the inflammation in your body, which oftentimes is the root cause of your pain. You've got these joint arthritis, aches and pains, and you don't realize it's inflammation that is causing it. Omega XL will neutralize the inflammation, get to that root cause, and shut it down. It really can be life-changing. So if you have not yet tried it and you are living in pain, I urge you to try this. It will change your entire life. You can go to omegaxl.com/news. If you order one bottle, you will get a second bottle for free over at omegaxl.com/news. So I want to, Jason, I want you to give a brief overview of what all has transpired within the last, I guess overnight, because I feel like yesterday evening, I was staying abreast of the news and I was seeing, oh crap, Russia is launching what appears to be, a full-scale invasion into Ukraine. There's explosions going off in Kyiv. Ukrainians running for shelter, running for safety. The highways were just completely backed up, just standstill traffic of people trying to get out of town. Just a really scary situation that it looked like they're in Ukraine, everywhere in Ukraine. Is that accurate?
Somewhat. So what we're seeing right now, and it actually kicked off a little after 4 a.m. Ukraine time. And that was interesting because it was actually journalists that got the word that was probably going to happen. And they got it hours before the actual invasion did kick off. But they called it right. The invasion did go off exactly when they said it would, early at wee hours of the morning. But what you're seeing is the conventional, a very conventional invasion beginning. It's nothing like what we saw in 2014 when it was the little green men going into Crimea, and then the quote unquote, pro-Russian sympathizers, which was really just Russia anyway, helping them out, taking eastern Ukraine. No, this is completely different. So what you saw with the explosions, and as of now, at least as of about 30 minutes ago, it is over 150 missiles that were fired into Ukraine from Russia. That was from Belarus. We also had missiles coming in from Crimea, also missiles coming over from mainland Russia. But what they're doing is they're targeting command and control. That is generals, that is actual government officials, people that are in charge of sending out, the war orders on the Ukraine side. And they're also hitting air defense assets to make sure that they can then fly in their air assets like helicopters, jets, bombers, things of that nature. They are very close to losing their air assets at this point, which is not a good sign. Once that phase of the war ends up concluding, then they'll start moving into trying to take more airports, airfields, military installations, and then swallowing up more territory. The Russian casualties are so far being reported by the Ukraine government are kind of high. 350 that from what I saw from the Ukraine is saying that they've killed the Russians. That's high. That's not something that they probably anticipated, or that's at least in the high end of what they anticipated. The Ukrainian health department is saying that around 57 Ukrainians have been killed. So heavily skewed there. But again, the only source we have now is the Ukrainian government. So just take that with a grain of salt. The casualties could be a lot higher or lower on each side. But I think the point here is that Ukraine is fighting back. They're not being a pushover in this. They're heavily outmatched. The future for them is very, very bleak. Russia has all the advantage here. But right now, I think Russia is trying to keep this from getting too out of hand when it moves into the urban areas, because that's Ukraine's strategy right now. They're going to fall back into the cities, into the urban areas, then let it be a war of attrition and see if they can force Russia to either concede or kind of pull back, because, you know, their goal then would be to just incur so many Russian casualties that they start losing the will to fight, or back home, which we're already seeing right now, protests will start erupting in places like Moscow, St. Petersburg.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, Yaku, I want to get your thoughts on everything that's going on. And then Jason, you set the scene for us. So I want to hear from Yaku, and then I want you, Jason, to also weigh in on your opinion. This is, of course, the news and why it matters. So why it matters to us here in America. Yaku, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is straight out of the playbook. I'm watching this. I was getting up to see if I had the Art of War in my studio, but I didn't. I wanted to hold it up, Jason, and say, here's Sun Tzu, the Art of War, straight out of the playbook. They're going to take out those assets. But I think Ukraine, because if you are weaker in your defense mechanisms, you will draw in, right? It's kind of what we saw in the Middle East when you guys went in. Bring them into the tunnels and the dungeons, or bring them closer so we can cause damage to them as well, hopefully to a degree high enough that their loved ones back home can protest. What's most interesting for me is what the rest of Europe is doing, and particularly Belarus. You know, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, later, but it's very interesting to see what the rest of Europe is doing. France, I'm paying close attention to Europe. I know, Jason, what's happening inside the Ukraine, but Europe right now, I'm watching. They say they're watching us. I'm watching Europe. Of course, we're going to cover a story later on with China, but I'm watching Boris and France and just all the other, NATO and EU allies to see how they're behaving. And there, for me, I expected, to be honest with you, because I watched this through the night, a little more of a robust response from Europe. So it's almost like they didn't expect for it actually to happen, Jason, and now it happened, and it's like, oh, okay, we got to move. We got to do something here. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm still.
And
baffled.
Jason, I wanna also just throw into the conversation that I was reading a report that Boris Johnson was the first one to actually act on all of these freezing Russian bank assets, and then of course Joe Biden announced earlier today new sanctions on Russia and limitations on what can be exported to Russia in response to all of this invasion. So, again, I don't think Putin gives a crap about sanctions, but Jason, I'll let you speak to that.
Yeah, the sanctions that Biden has announced will not deter the Russians. They just will not. They've been building up ever since 2014 when sanctions hit them last time, safeguards and ways to get around the sanctions. Now, the sanctions, it's interesting because today, I could not believe it if you were watching Biden speak, but he actually asked a question from a reporter, and he said that the sanctions were never meant to deter what Russia was going to do, which guys, this is why they don't let Biden answer questions after. That's why they usually shovel him right out the door, because he's not wasn't supposed to say that. And it was really interesting. His national security advisor, Sullivan, and his vice president, Kamala, they've been saying over the past week that the sanctions they'd prepared were specifically designed to deter Putin's actions. So get your messaging straight there. I think they know for a fact, actually, that, exactly what Biden let out of the bag today is that, they were never going to deter. It was just meant to look like we actually gave a crap and are going to do something about this. The sanctions as is, I think that they're more designed to inflict pain in the long run. So they're conceding pretty much that this is going to be very bad for Ukraine. They will probably lose Ukraine in the short term, but then over time, it'll be so painful for Russia that Russia will have to give something up or will have to give in. But right now, I mean, what they're looking for now, like if you're in Ukraine right now, you're like, what can you do for me now? What have you done lately?
That's right.
What they're asking.
Yeah.
And things that they could do that would cause pause. Biden said today he's not going to do them. He's not going to sanction Putin. Why not? Do you believe in this or not? They're not going to do sanctions on SWIFT or cut Russia off from SWIFT. And if you don't know what SWIFT is basically the global financial system. It's how transactions are made country to country. So in other words, Russia gets 50% or more of their GDP from oil and gas. I'm sorry, like 80%. Well, you're going to cut off probably about 50% of that income. So yes, that's an immediate bam. That crippled Iran when that happened. So administration is talking tough, but everything they're doing isn't tough at all, really. And go ahead.
Yeah. No, sorry.
I was just going to say, you mentioned that, and I also think it's worth throwing into the conversation. He keeps talking about sanctions, but wouldn't the biggest sanction be for us to maintain some sort of energy independence? Because
absolutely,
they're getting all of this money funneled to them just through all of the oil and gas.
You don't even have to sanction. You just go back to Trump's policy. We're going to go energy independent. We don't even have to. We just starve you out.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that would be the greatest sanction that you would think that you could consider.
The sanctions, to Jason's point, though, SWIFT was the tool. And when he didn't pull the SWIFT sanction, I knew this is softball. You're talking a big game. You get in the ring and you're not throwing any punches. This all talk. It's all just political theater again, because SWIFT would hurt them. But the sanctions they're imposing at the moment, and correct me, Jason, if I'm wrong here, it's going to hurt the Russian people. They're not going to have food. They're not going to eat. Putin doesn't care. He'll kill half his own nation. He does not care about his own people. This is a power grab. Unless Biden goes directly after Putin himself and addresses him and name him and sanctions him, he doesn't care if his people struggle. If the people don't eat in the villages, he couldn't care less. And good luck getting him to give territory back down the road, if that's some sort of a hope, that, okay, we're going to over time get this back. Good luck. This guy's been stewing for decades on trying to do what he just did last night.
Yeah, this completely took me off guard. It really did. I always thought that, because Putin is not a crazy guy. He's homicidal, but he's not out of his mind. He's not suicidal. So he's always cold. He's calculating. National interest is the top of his mind. Geopolitics is the top of his mind. When he made that speech, a few days ago, I was like, that sounds like a madman. That really sounds like a madman. And it was so, orchestrated as such. I thought it was an act. I really did. My stance on this for a while has been, yes, I think Putin wants Ukraine. He wants it not for nationalism, because, all of his stuff that he said, it's the homeland of Russia. I don't think he gives a crap about that. I think he purely wants it for geopolitical purposes. He wants strategic depth, and he doesn't want hostile forces to ever have a chance to be in Ukraine. But I always thought that what he was doing was kind of like, bluffing as much as he could, be as threatening as he could, but the end state goal was to further diminish NATO. And you were seeing fissures, right? And we're seeing them right now. Germany's not really willing to go as far as everybody else. Germany's got their own issues. They've got economic interest in Russia. Putin could very easily draw Germany out. You have Italy. They're the same way. They've got, their own issues, and they're one of the ones that won't fully commit to SWIFT, is both Italy and Russia or Germany.
Yep.
Everyone's kind of divided. NATO, this is the irony of it, right? Putin knew how irrelevant NATO was. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so bold right now. He knows that, NATO is not what it used to be. But the weird irony here is he's actually making NATO relevant again. So with all of this action, he's kind of creating this monster that's going to come back from the dead. The question is, how dangerous is that going to get moving forward? We're one, errant missile flying into Poland away from this escalating beyond what we would like to see it escalate to. So I'm still waiting to see where this eventually leads. How bad is this really going to get? Will Putin just do kind of like a surprise stop and say, okay, now I want these concessions? Or will he just go straight into Kiev, put in a puppet, leader that he can manipulate? Or will they just annex the whole thing anyway, like they did in Crimea? Basically, at this point, all options are on the table.
Yeah, I want to throw in, this is just really sickening to me personally. United States Senator from Hawaii, Brian Schatz, who tweeted out earlier today, I want to get your take on this. He said, "It is more essential than ever that we rally around our president as he leads the free world in response. If your instinct is to try to turn this into a partisan political advantage or a viral tweet, step off the stage." And I'm like, you guys crapped all over Donald Trump, our president, by the way, for 4 years. You didn't support anything he did. You claimed that he was some stooge, some puppet of Vladimir Putin. And now all of a sudden you say we need to rally around our president. It's like, God, it's enraging to me.
Yeah, me too. And so are they saying that we should have just blindly agreed like most people did with George Bush when he was saying, let's go into Iraq? Because no, I don't think that they would agree with that. But now we need to just all fully on board and not question anything at all. Like, I'm sorry, but, I think conservatives are very torn on what we should actually do here. You've got some people like Tucker Carlson that thinks that we should do nothing at all. And he says that, Putin is just, protecting his own borders. You've got a large amount of conservatives that agree with that. But I got to tell you, it's really hard. You can't just dismiss where Tucker's coming from. I don't agree with Tucker on that. At heart, I am an isolationist, but I also think that we don't need to completely step out of the game and get in and just let things like what's going on happen. I'm not saying military troops. I don't think our troops need to be anywhere near there, but I'm all for giving them weapons. I'm all for doing sanctions that are meaningful to punish him, to stop him. But I don't think we should just turn a blind eye. But
Jason, don't you think though this is a huge opportunity for us through an economic play? If I could just in the hypothesis here say this, a Trump, for instance, not that I want to speak for the former president, but right now, okay, we're going to go energy independent. The reason Italy wouldn't pull the SWIFT card is they're energy dependent of Russia. Mm-hmm. That pipeline runs to France. France is saying, well, wait a minute, if you start, stopping pipeline, okay, we'll supply you energy, Europe. The US will sell you energy. We're going to claim territory back economically. We'll become the net exporter of energy. Italy will buy energy from us. We'll make you we're going to completely cut Russia off through just an economic move, a proactive, swift economic move. But then I remember we've got a sleepwalking mummy at the helm that couldn't even think about an economic move like that. But I could imagine that's there for the taking for me, though. Right now, go energy independent, make a move on Europe, broker deals in the back door, sell them energy, and just cut Russia off completely. Yeah, then you'll see Putin dance. Then he'll dance.
Yeah, for sure. And regarding that sleepwalking mummy, blind faith towards this guy and just lining up behind him and just doing whatever he says. I'm sorry, but those same people I was just talking about, conservatives that are split on this, they're thinking in the back of their head, wait a minute, this is the guy that just basically called me a terrorist because I think another way. Or this is the guy that think that our country is systematically racist. And he thinks that because of the color of my skin, that means that I am racist. No matter what I think, just because of the color of my skin, I'm racist. They've been hearing this from these people. Now they're like, I have to blindly follow this guy? I have to just take his word for it that, oh, okay, yeah, whatever you want to do in Ukraine is fine with me. Oh, okay. Am I also supposed to forget that you are one of the most corrupt politicians ever and that your family has been getting millions from the Ukrainian government? Hey, are we just supposed to forget that now? That has no bearing. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that should drive all of our decision making and what we do about it, but I'm sorry, but I am going to bring that up. That's going to factor into my thinking on
It's
what
a
I choose to
factor.
support or not. Absolutely is a factor.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw, if I could make this really quick, Sarah.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry for filibustering. But
I'm
it's
used
such
to
a
it with you, Jason.
it's such a strange divide where there's no middle ground on this. I've seen this in the conservative circle a lot, or the circle on the right, is you either believe in like complete isolationism, which I believe to a point, but then you also cannot be on the side of, well, we should do something. Like there's no middle ground, right? You're either for doing something hardcore, like like a neocon way, or just complete. There's no middle ground at all. And I saw a tweet from Tulsi Gabbard where she was blaming everything on NATO. And I actually don't like NATO either. I think it's a relic of the Cold War. I don't really see much of the point anymore. But she just brought up the point that, hey, maybe NATO shouldn't have completely denied, or shouldn't have just said, hey, we're not going to say that Ukraine's never going to join NATO. Well, that was already a thing. They were never going to let Ukraine join NATO, but they wouldn't say it. Now, I'm not saying that was the total reason, because I think Putin was going to invade anyway. But you gave him an excuse. You handed him the NATO excuse to go in and do it. And the same thing for the Biden corruption stuff. He mentioned that in his speech a few days ago. I'm not saying that was the reason why he invaded either, but you gave him the excuse. That's why this type of political corruption is so dangerous. Rant over, but it's a weird divide right now where you have to be dogmatic on either way. You can't. There's no nuance whatsoever.
Yeah, well, and I think that that's a great point. Giving these countries the excuse to do what they're doing, I think will tie into our next topic, which is what's going on between China and Taiwan. We're going to get to that in just a minute. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Built Bar. So I've been living off of Built Bar while we are at home because the kids are out of school and it's just, my house is basically a zoo. I'm actually shocked that like no dog or cat or child or maybe husband, I don't know, has come in here and just, like interrupted the live stream, but it's chaos here. And Built Bar has been keeping me alive because it's a very quick on the go snack, but it's very healthy. It's high in protein. It's low in calories, low in sugar, and everything is covered. All of their bars are covered in 100% chocolate. So you are eating a protein bar that also tastes delicious. You're going to think that you're cheating. The first time that I ate a Built Bar, I was like, I feel like I should feel really guilty about this. But I kept looking at the package. I'm like, really? 150 calories? That's it? Really? 18 grams of protein? 4 grams of sugar? Are you serious? I don't feel bad about that at all. So for those of you who are looking to stay on track with your diet, you got to go over to built.com. Use promo code NEWS15. You'll save 15% off of your order over at BUILT, built.com. All right, so I want to move to, as I mentioned before, what's going on with Taiwan and China. So Taiwan scrambled its Air Force earlier today after reporting Chinese aircraft in its airspace. Now, look, this is, I think this is something that we have heard. This is not unusual, they would say, that this happened, but it is at least interesting, the timing of it, because obviously China has been kind of chomping at the bit to invade Taiwan. And now that Russia has launched their invasion into Ukraine, many are speculating that China will kind of use this to their advantage. And they're looking at this and saying, actually, the West is pretty weak. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do whatever I want to do. Jason, let me pitch this to you to kind of fill in the gaps of what I am not saying that you find to be important in this particular conflict.
No, you pretty much nailed it. I mean, this has been going on for quite some time. It's been ramping up over the past year, and pretty alarming, actually. I think that the stat from a few months ago was that they had seen more air activity from China's Air Force than they had ever, which says a lot. It also it signals. It's similar in the Ukraine vein because no kidding, Putin was going to do this at some point. I mean, they took Crimea in 2014. Right. They already took Eastern Ukraine. They started massing troops. Hello, we know something's going to happen. China is projecting the same stuff. They're either by how they're talking or their military, whether it's naval or air force, that they're pushing in on Taiwan. They're signaling what they want to do. And little thing, like not little things, but big things like this, like the Ukraine invasion, are more kind of like proof of concept of what they want to get done and what is possible that they can do and what the blowback will be. That's why this is so important for them to respond strongly now, because if they don't, then China is like, oh, that's what we have to prepare for. Oh, they're going to sanction this, and this. Okay, we're going to insulate this, and this. You better believe they are taking notes big time on this. It's kind of funny. That's not funny either, but it's interesting that, you hear people like Biden and his, foreign policy experts. They always talk about the rules-based system in the world, which has always been an illusion. It's always been an illusion. It's been an illusion since, what was it? When Woodrow Wilson said that the League of Nations was going to completely eliminate war. Then the economists agreed with them. They're like, yeah, globalism will also eliminate the war because we'll be so intricately, entwined with each other. It's bullcrap. There will always be a nation that wants more. They'll always do in the interests, what they believe is their interests. They're going to get it done. War is not eliminated. Things like Ukraine will, happen all the time. They're going to happen again. And Taiwan, yes. If they make the mistakes of 2014, and they don't heed the warnings of what was right in front of them, we're getting the warnings on Taiwan now. If they don't heed those warnings and start preparing now, it's going to happen.
Yeah, the only difference for me, and I hope you guys still have my video because I went down there for a second. But
yeah, we gotcha.
Only difference for me here is you can imagine that the CCP is sending Putin thank you notes. Thank you for the mock drills. Thank you for running the drills for us, because they are taking notes. And it's been a long time coming for the swing of the world superpower, being the US, to go to China. People say Russia, but China, really, that is a massive threat. And I think they're looking at us at this moment and say, is it time yet? Do we make a move? So this is to them an amazing mock drill. It's not mock, it's real life. Real lives are being lost. But to China to say, okay, under a democratic or a liberal US reign like Biden and the party, this is what war would look like. Because just 14 months ago, it looked very different. They would not dare, not Putin nor, I don't think we're here today if Donald Trump is in the White House at all, even the Ukraine. And so I think this is dangerous for us. It shows weakness, and this administration has shown weakness to the world since the beginning. Remember, again, I'll remind us, in Alaska, China coming in saying, you're no longer in a position of strength. You don't bargain from a position of strength, America. I think it's playing out.
The world really has changed.
Jason, I want to get your thoughts, but I think Yaku mentioned he does not think we are here right now today if Donald Trump was president. Do you share that view?
Oh, I absolutely think that that's the case. I think that this is something that Putin wanted to get done in the long run. But I absolutely think that he waited for Biden and his people to get back into power. I think when the Russians, screwed around with the election, which, don't get me wrong, I don't think that had a bearing on who won the election in 2016. But I think that was a direct response to Hillary Clinton and her people screwing around with Russia's election. We talked about that back in the day. I think that this is, what Biden and what Obama and Biden did to Ukraine in 2014. They actively helped in the Ukrainian revolution. I think the Ukrainian revolution was a good thing, but I think what the Obama administration did to Ukraine after, I think, was absolutely criminal. I've looked at the documents. I've looked what George Soros and the rest of them were doing in Ukraine. I think they saw it as a big cash cow. But I think that the Russians saw a change, something different in Trump. The way he was talking about NATO, the way he was talking about national interest was just different from what the liberal think tanks and policymakers were doing under Obama and Biden. So I absolutely think that he waited. I think there could have been a different, if Trump would have been president right now, I think that there definitely could have been swings in the other direction. We'll never know now, but it's sad that the people that created so many problems in the past, Obama, Biden, all their people, just came right back to screwing up the
Yep.
world. Right back to
Yep.
screwing up the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, wasn't it Obama who was like on a hot mic saying we'll have a little bit more flexibility after the election to Russian officials?
Yeah, to Medvedev. And he was like, I will
Yeah.
transmit to Vladimir.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like I can't possibly fathom any of this happening under President Trump. You know, they always wanted to hit him on being unstable, and you know, well, you just can't. He's just kind of crazy. He might go crazy. You don't want this guy having the nuclear codes. Well, it turns out that's actually exactly the guy you want to have the nuclear codes, because all of the other world leaders realize we don't actually really know where he's going with this, so we better not screw with him. With Joe Biden, it's like, yeah, no, this guy's half asleep and half dead, so I guess we'll just do whatever we want.
There's so
Yeah,
many.
remember, sorry, Jason. Remember Trump, the famous tweet to Kim Jong, when Kim Jong says, I have the nuke button on my desk, and Trump goes, tell him I have a nuke button on my desk and mine works.
Yeah.
You know, that deters people. They're like,
Yeah.
this dude may push the button, you know, and it puts them in play. It levels, it makes the playground a safe place. When someone walks out and smashes a bully in the mouth, they go, okay, we can all play now, right? And so where's the bully now? It's Vladimir, and it's the CCP. And so they're going to try to take the playground.
President Reagan, the proof of concept for strength is good deterrence was proved, you know, during his, 8 years in office. Biden administration was anything but. I mean, it would be strength to say we're going to continue sanctioning the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. We're going to keep those sanctions in place, and if anything, it looks like that thing's moving forward, get ready for additional sanctions, and they will pummel. That's strength. Leading NATO and saying, look, why are we having so much subterfuge on whether NATO is going to do any more expansion or whether NATO is going to admit Ukraine? Like, if I'm president, I'm like, wait a minute, it hurts nothing for us just to reveal what the truth already is. Yeah, fine, Putin, we'll give you that one. We're not going to admit them into NATO. It doesn't hurt us. It helps Ukraine because then they're not threatened because of that excuse. And then Putin is forced to come up with a different excuse, which we can then have strength on and defeat in the future. There's so many different things that they could have been done to show strength, but they've been weak.
Yeah. All right. I want to go ahead and switch gears here and talk about what is going on in Canada. But first, I want to quickly thank our sponsor, Genucel. So, I mentioned earlier, have you, like I have, reached the age when ... Well, this applies here as well. You wake up and you look in the mirror and you're like, why do I look 100 years older than I actually am? And specifically, I think that the pandemic has aged all of us. So I think all of us are looking in the mirror right now and we're like, gosh, I feel like I did not look this old like 2 years ago. Well, I have help for you. Okay, it is Genucel. They've got a bunch of anti-aging treatments. They've got things for fine lines, forehead wrinkles, under eye puffiness. They've got an amazing product for under eye puffiness as well. I actually am wearing right now the anti-aging primer underneath my makeup. So ladies, those of you who you do the makeup thing every day like I do, their anti-aging primer works wonders, makes your skin super duper smooth, very soft and hydrated. And Genucel has a retinol alternative cream that uses clinical concentrations of a natural alternative to correct red inflamed skin and even out skin tone. It's all made for sensitive skin. It's effective hydration for all skin types, perfect for men and women. So whatever it may be that you are having problems with, if you are looking in the mirror and not liking what you are seeing, you got to go head over to Genucel. You can get Genucel's Ultra Retinol Cream for free when you order their most popular package at over 60% off, by the way. So that's a deal on top of a deal. It doesn't get better than that. Get an extra discount, by the way, entering my special promo code Y, that's WHY, at checkout. If you bundle, by the way, your skincare faves at thenewgenucel.com, you will save an extra 10%. So I just said it doesn't get better than that, but it actually does. It got way better than that. So you got to go there. It is genucel.com/Y. That is GENUCEL.com/Y. Let's switch gears here over to what's going on in Canada. So Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, which, we're doing this remotely, so I didn't want to include a bunch of video clips because I'm actually controlling everything here on my computer today, unlike yesterday when they were doing it at the studio. And I didn't want to, look, if there's something to screw up, technically I would screw it up. So I didn't want to include any of the video clips, but there is a video clip, which I'm sure the audience prefers that I don't play, soy boy Justin Trudeau giving any sort of press conference. But he did announce yesterday that the threats from those big old bad mean truckers are over, and that he is rescinding the emergency powers used to quiet the occupation. They also said that they were lifting the freeze on people's bank accounts, that's just really nice. Whenever like your dictator, I'm sorry, I meant prime minister. Whenever your prime dictator like lifts all of these frozen bank accounts and allows you to live your life as normally, it's really great. See, the only problem, you guys, is that as far as I know, a lot of the federal, the national Canadian vaccine issues are still in place, still at hand. There were a couple local provinces that rolled back their vaccine passports and some of their mandates. But I worry that the Canadian government won in this. What do you guys think? Jason, I'll start with you.
I absolutely agree. I don't know if Glenn Greenwald wrote a really good piece a few days ago, and it was all about the silencing of dissent in the West, and how governments, that's their main goal now. The left is moving into a phase of, look, they're not used to being challenged. They have been taking a beating in culture, which they're not used to. Like CRT in schools, things like that. They're not used to pushback from the right. Because normally we just kind of like sit at home and complain to each other. We don't mobilize and hit the streets or hit, school boards, but we did for this. COVID mandates, all that, we're coming out in force again. And we're getting a lot of allies from the center and even some from the left. And we're going out and actually protesting and mobilizing. That scares the crap out of them. So now they're moving into another phase. You saw it with the January 6th stuff. The January 6th committee, we know what that's all really about. Does that grandma need to spend 3 months in jail? You kidding me? Stuff like that. Like, this is designed to intimidate. And I think that's what Trudeau implementing the emergency powers was to intimidate. That was to say, look, if you feel like you have a dissenting voice, this is what I'm going to do to you. They don't have to keep it permanent, even though they were, discussing that. They don't have to. They have that now in their bag of tricks, to where if you want to have the audacity to stand up to the government and say, this is not what I signed up for, this is not what we believe in, this is not what America or Canadians are all about, okay, I'm pushing the button again. So this is meant to shove into everyone's faces. If you dare to be to have any kind of dissent, this is what's going to happen. So yeah, I think that the Canadian government thinks that they won because they think they've intimidated people. I think, and I never would have said this before, I guess because I just didn't really know Canadians that well, but I think that they're misjudging their own people. I think
there you go.
I think that they are, and I think
there you go, brother. There you go. Come on now. This is me rallying. This is halftime speech, baby. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. What happens to an athlete when you get smashed in the mouth? The game slows down. You wake up and you go, okay, I'm not gonna die. They didn't die. Yes, old women got run over by horses and trampled, but they sniffed blood. The Canadian people sniffed blood. The American people are sniffing blood, going, wait a minute, they're weak. We can actually take them. We can take the government. We can take school boards back. Canadians, I'm telling you today, you sniffed and tasted blood, you'll go again. And round two, the nerves won't be there. You'll have you'll have strength, you'll have strategy as well. You go again. And remember one thing, Trudeau, you didn't get a new breed of truckers. The same people you just ticked off are going to deliver your food next week, dude. It's the same truckers that's still going to run. It's the same people. This is for me, having lived in Canada, this was a huge victory for the Canadian people. May you remember, this is like V for Vendetta. Remember, right? That time when we stood up and we held the fort for 2, 3, 4 weeks. Yes, okay, they sold our trucks. Next time we come, we're going to come like thunder. I think this is huge. Just come again. round 2, round 3, round 4. Don't let up. They're cowards. Biden, Trudeau, all these people, they're cowards. You got to push them. They will break. Okay, they will fold if you just keep going. Jason, I'm telling you, buddy, I'm in war mode. They got to keep pushing.
Yeah, I think it's the miscalculation from the left, whether it's from the Biden administration, from it's Trudeau, leftist governments all over the world. It's just it's very interesting to me because leftism over the past decades, 100 years, they were like, we're for the working man, right? Like they're always like, blue collar Joe, or like Bill Clinton was, he was all about blue collar workers, and it's all been about workers of the world unite. Now they have like the intellectuals, quote unquote, the technocrats, the big businessmen now, which is crazy, are all going on the side of the leftists, and they're leaving the workers behind. Now their attacks are directly on workers. I guarantee you, workers of the world unite, that backfired on them big time. They didn't think the workers, the truckers and all them were going to come up. They didn't think uniting meant uniting against them. They thought they were on their side. But that's the miscalculation on this. And a lot of blue collar people are like, wait a minute, they're not on our side. Like they're trying to push us down. They're trying to put their boot on our throats. And I'm interested in seeing this play out. I don't know how they dig themselves out of that. They're already on that course. It doesn't seem like they can just do a U-turn.
So I'm curious then, I talked about this on the show yesterday about the so-called freedom convoy that's headed to DC. I know there's been some talk of like, everyone be careful because this could be a Fed infiltrated thing, similar to what there were some reports of what happened on January 6th. But what are your thoughts, just really quickly, guys, on this freedom convoy that is supposed to be going to DC, and of course what the National Guard has been activated as well for that? Yaku, I'll start with you.
Yeah, look, learn from the Canadians. It has to be peaceful, but you can take a firm stand on your rights. We have more rights than the Canadians do, way more. And we actually have documents, and we've got things backing us up that they didn't have. So if we're going to do something in this nation, do it right. Do it with the right sentiment. Know who you're going with, who's actually with you. Do your due diligence, proof and verify. Let's also learn from January 6th. Okay, let's learn. We have to look at history and learn. Where I said Glenn Beck and these guys built the American Journey experience, we learn from history. So learn from what just went down with the Canadians. Let's get smarter. Let's do this, but do it smart. I think it's going to happen, Sarah. I think they broke something in the middle class. When that trucker said, take my truck, sell my truck, I don't care. That's his livelihood. A trucker's truck is his life. It's how his rig is his life, especially when they own them. And so many truckers today own their trucks, right? So for a trucker to say, take my truck, something broke in the guy to say, que sera, sera. Esther in the Bible, if I die, I die, but I'm going to the king, and so I think you're going to see this around the world. We've seen Australia. Just do it right.
I don't know personally much about the people organizing the DC, California DC truck convoy. I would, and you hit this as well, Yako, you be aware of who you're standing next to. Be aware who's at your shoulder. If you don't know,
be aware that they will paint you as all of the bad things if you give them just a little bit of leverage to use. Right.
And anyone that's organizing some of these things, before you just run off, do your due diligence and find out who they are.
Absolutely.
Because but it's absolutely possible. I mean, look what happened January 6th. It's absolutely possible. It's a fact that the FBI was involved. It's a fact that the FBI was involved with the what was it, the Governor Whitmer thing. You absolutely have to be aware of people, anyone at all that's like, hey, why don't you go do this? Why don't you go do this? Pushing you to do something illegal or something that's going to get you in trouble, because that's really all they've got. Outside of doing the Justin Trudeau or January 6th committee type stuff, that's all they've got to paint you in a bad light and make you look bad. But it's never been more important than right now. One, for conservatives, or even if you're not conservative, if you're a centrist or whatever, but if you're going to stand up for what you believe in, if you want to push back on mandates and things like that, anything that's taking away your freedom, you've got to get out there. You've got to let it be known. If we cease to let our voices be known and to tell them that, no, I'm not going to stand for this, it's going to happen to us. But number two, you just got to be very, very careful and be very, very disciplined in how you do it.
Yeah, Jason, one thing I don't want us to,
Blackbird.
the mistakes I think we've made over the past, it's always DC, DC, DC. I want Americans to mobilize locally. Take the local fight. Your own city. You don't have to even go to DC. This is your city. Just really, we have to start thinking the way they think. They've
Agree.
infiltrated local with Soros and Zuckerberg. We must take local back.
Agree.
Yeah, those are all really great points. All right, well, I would just like to point out for the record, we've actually gone longer than a normal show. So thank you guys for hanging with me and doing this remotely. All of the weather forecasts that I have seen show that everything should be back to normal tomorrow. Have you guys heard anything different, guys?
Who knows? This is Texas. Who knows? It could be 100 degrees tomorrow or 0.
I know.
I'm driving. Right. I'm driving anyway. So,
well,
I'm waiting for global warming to show up. Right? Where is it?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, where's global warming?
I know. We could really use some of that right about now.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, guys, Jason Buttrell, Jakubuyans, thank you so much for joining with me and hanging remotely. And that's going to be it for us. And we will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.